Hey, welcome to the next episode of the podcast. Glad you joined us. Make sure to subscribe and also leave comments. Each week we'll put up new shows. If you're a new subscriber, check out all the past episodes as well to catch up. But we look forward to continue talking and hope you enjoy what we're hearing at this point.
You, Mike. Like, you didn't think I would do it. Change it. Stop recording.
Change what? Change what? What do I have? What do I have? Welcome to the show. What do I have?
So what's this? I noticed your guys' backgrounds. You got the Baltimore Ravens, and then you got the Cleveland Browns. Is there something I'm missing? I've been out of football. What's going on?
Well, we know that. We know you're out.
Yeah,
we know. We know you've been out for like 25 years now, so it's fine.
25.
Been out of it. Period.
20. 30, 40, whatever. It doesn't really matter.
No, you're not too far off. Actually, 20 years. You're actually right. So, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bastard. Fucking man.
It's just one of the matchups today since it's Saturday. It's a huge football matchup, but it's not these two teams. The big matchup is tomorrow between Len's favorite team of all time, the Cleveland Browns.
My most hated team. I still
against his second least favorite team.
Still the Steelers. I hate them the most.
Oh, so then why are you pitching about what I have in my background?
It's a division, I guess, right?
Jackass. Second most hated team. So what? I'm just going to fucking like them when I see them?
Yeah, you like them more than the
Happy
team
New
you're
Year,
playing.
by the way. Happy New Year. Thank you guys for coming by. Happy New Year, by the way. Let's start it off on a good note, guys. How about that, huh? Positive.
Shut up, Mike.
All right, so thanks, Mike. You know what? That's a good point. Let's have a positive attitude, okay? We're positive. It's a new year. We're positive. Trump's crazy.
Gotcha.
Wow, we're positive. Len's Browns will fucking lose badly tomorrow.
Yeah,
who are they playing tomorrow? Who are they playing tomorrow?
Steelers, dude.
Oh.
So they beat this. So they beat this. Let me give you a quick heads up.
All right.
Just because you've been out for 500 years. So they beat the Steelers last weekend. Like, I don't know, it was close. It was like 25-21, something like that. I can't remember. It was real like 29-24, somewhere around there. It was a close game. Oh, even closer. Got it. Okay, so 24-22. And Browns win that game. They make the playoffs. Great. Now they're in the first round of the playoffs, and they face Pittsburgh again. The only difference is there's a lot of things have changed in this 1 week, interestingly enough, unfortunately. Not in a positive way for the Browns, to be honest with you.
Look. Hey, there's no way that this year went by too good for the Browns.
Is it injuries?
No. Our head coach came down with COVID. And here's the best part. So he catches COVID, right? He's a coach. In other words, he could be in a fucking car in the parking lot with a Zoom thing on, talking and actually relaying, but they actually won't let him do that. He can't even communicate to the coaches during the game.
Because he has to quarantine? Because he has to quarantine?
But no, what I mean is he can't even on his cell phone or Zoom or whatever talk to the coaches. He can't participate in the game at all.
Wow.
Which makes no sense. But yeah, I mean, no, but again, this whole last 2-3 weeks has just made sure that, the football gods have said, no, this season went too well for you guys. Fuck you. Here, we're just gonna put all your wide receivers on the sideline for a game, and then
why don't you have some hope? Have some hope.
Stop it! Don't lie to them like that. There is no hope.
I did have hope, and then
what are the assistant coaches for? What are assistant coaches for? Come on.
No. I did have hope until we go into the easiest game of the season and we lose our whole wide receiving core. Yeah, then it just brought back a reality. There is no hope with the Browns. It's always going to be like this. There's always going to be something. BC is taking the step.
So there's that. That's a huge part. Then there's also the fact the Steelers were sitting a bunch of starters last week and they barely beat them. 24-22.
No, you want to know what? Honestly, I
don't think anything you say is going to be honest. But go ahead.
Roethlisberger, I think, will have an easier time with than we did with Rudolph, because we had no secondary help, and all Rudolph was doing. Did you see those plays? we have basically third string and practice players on our secondary, and all Roethlisberger's been doing this whole year has been more or less short dump offs. Being very efficient and everything, but mostly short dump offs. Where what's been killing us are these long passes where our cornerbacks are just too slow. What does scare me though is getting Watt back. He actually.
A couple of defensive players actually they didn't start all their defense, and Watt they just had him sit, just like Roethlisberger because they knew they have to play the first weekend anyway.
I'm not so much worried about the defense.
Where's it being held at? It's Cleveland or Pittsburgh?
No, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they won the division.
And who's favored now? Is it going to be Pittsburgh or
Pittsburgh? Yeah, Pittsburgh easily.
Pittsburgh. No, shut up. What a jackass. No, the thing was before this all happened, they were only favored by 3.5.
Pittsburgh easily. Is easy win.
No. Actually, you know what the biggest
6-point favorites, easy win. They're basically saying a touchdown.
The biggest difference is that we've only in the last 3 weeks like 4 actual practices in 3 weeks. So Mike, that execution thing you always talk about, there's been no practice for that. They only got to practice once this whole week.
Yeah, so that's horrible.
It's very sad. It's very fucking sad. Who cares? All right.
And Baltimore, and then who
they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose. You know what? Yeah. Point at yourself again as caring. Because then come next weekend, you'll be the biggest bitch about the whole thing about how this team always lets me down. And yet every season I step right back into it. Full 100% buy-in.
No, this year it's been
Stop.
20 years.
You know what movie we're going to review? We're going to all watch together? Draft Day. That's what we're going to watch.
I'm sorry, I'll be sick that day.
Just like your team. So anyway.
The Ravens. What about the Ravens?
I'm so happy.
Do you know the history of the Ravens, Mike? Because I'm happy to explain it again.
Where's the mute button? Hold on.
Well, no, I just want to know who
you can mute yourself all day.
Who's the Ravens player?
Oh, you know what? Mute.
So anyway, let me tell you why he's not listening because he's a big bitch. Baltimore Ravens, in case you don't know, were the original Cleveland Browns who moved from Cleveland to Baltimore. So I'm supporting the original OGs, Cleveland Browns, called the Ravens, who won, by the way, 2 Super Bowls after they left Cleveland. There's a little salt in the old wound for you.
Okay, so who are they playing?
Does it really matter?
They're
playing Tennessee.
Okay.
Titans. Okay, we're good. Maybe Len will jump back on now. He's got to be paying attention though, because now he's.
You hurt his feelings.
I don't give a shit. He's a big boy. He's fine. Grow up.
What's the chance of the Browns?
I hurt his feelings. Watching the Cleveland Browns hurts his feelings. Okay,
that's true.
I didn't hurt anything. I just pointed out a fact.
What if the Browns win? Isn't it possible? It's football. Anything can happen.
Yeah, of course. Anything can happen, dude. Anything can happen. The Browns could go on, beat the Steelers.
Okay, moving on to this from the Ravens.
Yeah. But like I said, the Ravens are the original Browns. So, 2 Super Bowls. Sorry. Okay. Enough. All right. Anyway, so we never really found. Obviously, I'm JD. We got Len and Mike. It's a new year. We've been gone for a while for the holidays. So just coming back. Obviously, football started this whole conversation, which is always fun. It's the prime time of the year where football playoffs kick in. So this will be fun. Michael finally not watch any of it, but so we got that. And then, of course, basketball is back in full swing as well. But let's talk about some of the other stuff's going on. I know you haven't watched it, Len, and I know there's the new season of Cobra Kai, season 3. Yeah. Now, you watched season 1 and 2, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I just haven't watched season 3 yet.
Well, then we don't have to get too much into detail on season 3, but I will say this: you definitely should watch it. So I binge watched the whole thing with my wife in 12 hours.
Yeah, me and my wife did the same thing.
Yeah, it's. I mean, they're only 30-minute episodes.
Yeah, 30+ minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's only 10. So yeah, but we pretty much watched the whole thing.
Why it took you 12 hours? So
well, it took me 12 hours because it was on New Year's. It dropped, right? So at midnight on New Year's, it dropped. So we started watching like first 4 episodes, and then decided, okay, probably time to go to bed at this point. It's almost 3:00 in the morning. So we go to bed and wake up the next morning and then finish the rest. So that's why it took about 8 hours time.
That makes sense.
Right.
So had to sleep somewhere in between. But yes, the minute it dropped, we were on it. Great series though, really was. A lot of setup for next season because they're going to do a season 4, and looking forward to it. But yeah, you get to see a lot of old school characters from the first 2 movies show up as well. So that's a nice touch to it.
Oh, okay.
A good little history background too about certain things, about specific characters, right? I like that. You're absolutely right, JD. It definitely leads to a good part to season 4, a good transition from what needs to be done and what's going to happen, right? So I gotta get me one of those shirts though, with Johnny Lawrence new shirts.
Oh, Johnny Lawrence. Wait, now you'd have to tell Len exactly what you're referring to.
No, we don't have to tell him.
I'll just look it up.
So anyway, great season, great series. You should check it out as soon as you can. Then we can chat more about it. But yeah, they did leave a lot to be there. I think they dove a little bit more into Kreese in this series. So they give you a bit more background on why he's such a dick.
It makes sense though, because remember, right? Because he comes back in Karate Kid 3, right? He comes back in Karate Kid 3. So this makes sense that this is probably the next place for it to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if they pull in the next Karate Kid, which is Hilary Swank, into it.
So I was thinking that too, right? The only way they can tie all 4 Pat Morita's Miyagi-Do type setup is to bring in Hilary Swank at least at some point.
But it makes sense though, because in this series, in Karate Kid, this 3 series, right? They bring back the people from 2 who were tied to Mr. Miyagi, right? So it's definitely
2 and 1.
Yeah, so that's a good part right there. So it shows the lineage kind of things. That's great.
Yeah. So
what shirt are you talking about?
Well, you have to know what it's called to be able to find it. They're not going to post it online yet.
Yep.
He starts a new dojo, and that new dojo has a different name. Yeah. Put it that way. Okay?
I just looked at short coach. Okay.
I mean, I'm going to tell him. I got to tell him. Eagle Fang. Eagle Fang dojo. Because eagles have fangs. No, they don't. No, they don't. I love that they make him so like out of touch of what's going on.
Yeah,
character. It's just funny.
He's so tied to the '80s still kind of guy, right? Can't let go of that genre.
Yeah. How he works with the laptop is fantastic. His lack of understanding. I mean, it just shows that you're right. A guy who was stuck in the '80s who hasn't really adapted well, or hasn't even grown with the times, right? He just hasn't grown with the times. So, but Eagle Fang. Because eagles have fangs, is what he's saying. The kids are like, no, they don't. Eagle Fang, Miyagi-Do, and Cobra Kai, all battling it out.
I gotta give me that shirt though. It's gonna be I definitely want to support that shirt. So I want to support Johnny Lawrence.
Nice. So that was season 3. So there you go.
There you
exactly.
Go.
Eagle Fang. Eagle Fang karate.
Yeah.
Best stuff ever. By the way, did you hear recently? Obviously, since we've been out, there are a lot of stuff's happened. I'll hold Trump for later. But the one thing that passed recently was there's this well-known scientist who basically said that there's a Galactic Federation of aliens who have been in communication with the U.S. government, and we're constantly in talk with them, apparently. So it's like Trump and previous presidents know about this. What's your thoughts, Mike? What are your thoughts about there being a Galactic Federation of aliens that are now communicating with us?
Why can't it be possible? And I'm not surprised if it is.
No, it's possible. Yes.
So why'd you say bullshit then? Why'd you say bullshit?
Because the possibility is extremely fucking low.
Based on what? You just made a comment without any facts to back that up. So tell me why.
Wait. If aliens can come to our planet, it means that their technology is so far advanced. Why would they go to the U.S. government? Why would they even go to our government?
Why not?
What would be the
Have you learned nothing from Star Trek? The Prime Directive.
Is it like time travel?
No, it's not time travel.
That's a problem. Why some people always want to come back and say like, why would they do this thing? And then it comes back to why can't they, or why shouldn't they?
Just look at our civilization in the U.S. in the last week alone, and tell me why they wouldn't come out and say anything directly.
Why not?
What I mean is, why would an alien? why would aliens go?
Why does humans do it to go to another country and do the same thing? It's no different. So
Fuck does that have to do with that? Anyway,
well, no, I'm just saying, if humans go to another country and try to dictate something else, why can't aliens come from another planet and do the same thing?
wait, hold on.
They could dictate everything about us if they could travel.
Yeah,
through
why
space
not?
like this. Yeah, so they basically look at us like we're chimpanzees or something. That we're basically primates.
Yeah,
So
why
why do they fucking care?
Why
Why
not?
would
Why
they-
do we do it? Why do humans do it?
We do it with animals all the time. I'm
Exactly,
saying
but so
they
why
look
do?
at us as they're equal.
Wait.
Right.
So, Mike, you're saying we're pets?
No, what I'm saying is that why can't it just be done? Period. Why can't a civilization come here that if they're more superior, if they're more technologically superior than us, why won't they?
No,
We've done humans do
my
it too.
God. Johnny Lawrence, listen to me. Johnny Lawrence, listen.
Here we go.
What I'm saying is,
Here we go.
if they have that ability to come here, it's not that they don't. I'm not saying that there's not the possibility. If they come here, why would they want to do it covertly?
Why wouldn't they? Or
Why
why
would
Well,
should they?
Well, okay, hold on. Let me ask you this then. I get what you're saying, Len. So that's more to you. And I'm not going to keep interrupting you here. I just want you to explain to me what would be the benefit knowing how our society is and how they react. And say for decades they've been monitoring and watching how we react to events and whatnot. Why would be the first thing in their mind like, fuck it, they're ready. Let's just jump down and show ourselves.
But wait, okay, what would be the purpose of them waiting? What,
They want to see how we're evolving.
What are they here for? What are they here for? No, seriously, if they were looking at
There's
how it's
speculation.
evolving-
Seriously, it is. It
No,
can't
no,
be.
no, 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 no.
Why can't it be
If
that?
they were looking at that, seriously, if aliens really were to objectively look at humans as a whole, they would say, you know what, that's an invasive species. Let's just wipe them out.
No.
Why would you? But why would you think that?
That's
But
okay.
why?
Clearly,
but why
Len
would
thinks
you
we're an
think that?
invasive species that should be wiped out. Got it.
No, no, no.
So that-
If you're this superior being, you're looking at how we're acting, and either you're going to say, hey, you know what? Either they need to be wiped out, or we need to take control of these people.
All right, General Zod. Jesus Christ.
Well, so first off, you're using our type of mentality to
Exactly.
decide how they
Why are
react.
they helping us? Why are they
Exactly.
letting all this happen without helping us?
Well, first off, we don't know if they are helping us. All we've heard
What do
at
you
the
mean?
latest
Getting
trailer.
If they're out there and if they're in communication with our presidents over the last few decades, what purpose have they served? I mean, what are they waiting for? What purpose would all of that serve with them waiting?
So here's the thing, Len. We got to remember each planet, each area has different kind of minerals or resources that other beings might use. People in this country can get a benefit from another country that we don't have, right? There's a resource that is. It's no different than another beings or beings coming from another planet. They might find something here, like JD says. Maybe they're the ones who help build our civilization. Maybe they're the ones who's making sure that, hey, are they ready at these intervals? Who knows, right? We don't know that. And JD's right. And I've said this before, right? It's the normal mentality. Why would they do this? Well, why can't they do this? Why are we limiting ourselves in thinking like they can't, or why should they? When there's another question, it's like, well, why can't they? Right? We're always afraid to ask that. Why can't they? I already assume. I already think that it's already being done, and it's already being done in the vaccines. It's been done for hundreds of years.
No.
And it is what it is. I'm going to accept it.
Likelihood is like,
And then when it happens, when everyone's going to freak out, like, oh my God.
What is this? A fucking secret society? I mean, so here's the reality, right? Take a look at
reality.
movies. Look at the reality of for us, right? Not whether or not they exist. The point is how we interpret them. Every movie we have with aliens is generally negative and we need to attack. Knowing humanity and how stupid people are and buy into shit, why would you, even if they were communicating, why would you, even as the government, and we know the government keeps shit from us all the time because society isn't ready for it. So why would they want even if an alien race was connecting with them, why would they even want to introduce them to humanity, knowing full well society's not ready for that?
I understand that with the government. No, my whole thing is, what would the aliens have to gain for being in?
No, think of it this way. I get what you're saying. You're trying to say what would be the value to them to even bother? Mm-hmm. Who knows? Scientific, right? The same thing as us with understanding species. We like to sit there and study them and understand what they're doing. It could be the same concept here.
Why would they go to the government for that?
Because maybe they're getting people so they can do anal probes. Fuck, I don't know, dude.
I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. It makes no look, Mike. I understand what you're saying, but there's the possibility that a civilization is that advanced that they can actually go bend space and time to be able to come over here. The idea of traveling 40 million light years is, yes, it's something that we can't even fathom. It's something that humans can fathom. But I mean, even with our knowledge of physics, it's not even something that is something that we can even approach. And I'm not saying that it's because we don't know it today doesn't mean that it's not possible. But the idea of an alien species being able to come to visit us, the probability is, I mean, like 0.0001% when you really add up all the factors with it. Not saying that I believe that there is other life forms out there, because I mean, space is too vast, infinite for it not to be a possibility. But to be able to visit us, the possibility, or just they would have to be on such a plane, not Star Trek plane, not being able to use like that type of stuff. But I mean, on a plane of existence that we can't even fathom.
So let me ask you this question then. If you were in a high powered position, right, would you speak to the people or would you speak to the leader?
What I'm saying is that
it's a fucking question. Answer his question.
It's just a question. Who would you seek?
No, fine. Yes, I would go to leader. But what I'm saying is this: if they're at that plane, if they're that intelligent, they're basically going to look at us like rats.
So
I mean, in other words, that we aren't even a species that they would even look upon as being intelligent or having.
Why would people think that? Why is that the most first reaction? Like, they're so good godlike that they would look at us this low. Why is that the first reaction we have to think?
What I'm saying is that to be able to travel across space, it would have to be able to. They would have to be so far advanced that we would be like I said, like ants or whatever. They wouldn't. It's not that they would look at themselves as gods over us. We look at gods over the animal kingdom. Yes. We take monkeys, we take dogs, we take all the other creatures and do experiments on them for our own benefit, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, because there's not even a morality about it. It's how humans have always acted.
Yeah, top of the food chain. Top of the food chain.
Exactly. What I'm saying is that if they come here, they're not going to look at you as an intelligent monkey. They're just going to look at you as, you're just some species on here.
But if they could communicate with you and they could decipher which ones you are and who are those people, then they're going to do it.
But they're not going to. But what I'm saying is that they're going to be so far advanced.
Well, so the advanced part is not the. I don't see that's the problem where I'm looking at, or not the problem, I should say. So already the advanced level is there. The ability to come to us, that's an advancement. The ability to do that, the ability to communicate with us or provide us technology, that's already an advancement that it is. So, but what I'm trying to state is that, as a higher being race, you'll always go to the higher powers first, right? Because they're the ones you always will. So it makes sense. So to me, it makes sense that if this was a high-powered Galactic Federation of alien race, they're speaking to the UN, the President of the United States. That would make sense to me. And this is not too far off. It's not too far off.
What I'm saying is they're not going to look at humans as something that they have to communicate with. It'd be no different than us.
So let's talk about that real quick, because you're making a statement based on your human understanding.
Right.
Of course.
You're trying to apply your logic based on what we think, what we've learned in our understanding of life, and trying to say, based on our logic, there's no way. But in reality, that doesn't mean they have that same logic. So we're trying to apply our thoughts into how it should be, when in reality, again, if this is happening, one guy said it. Now, no one's saying it's actually happening, that there were communication with the government and whatnot. But the point is, we're trying to logically apply our base knowledge, our understanding, and assume this is how others react. And that's not it. I mean, that's not it. We can't assume that. Societies are based on where you start from, right? How you've learned and executed. And so what we know is based on what we've learned.
So the likelihood of what I'm saying is about as likelihood as Mike. We're both probably wrong, actually, right?
I don't disagree. That's my point.
No.
The conversation about this is someone made a statement.
You changed my point of view. I appreciate it. Thank you, JD.
Thank you. You're welcome.
That's what we're here for. Just like aliens, they're changing our point of views.
What do you think about the
fucking clue?
Exactly. And if they are here, we can't even begin to fathom why. Like, we can't. If we apply our logic, we're wrong immediately.
I'll go with that.
We're wrong immediately. So, and this comes back to your point about science. Like, if they can travel fast distances, we feel they're so superior. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're superior in certain ways, but maybe they're not superior in others, and that's why there's an interest. Who knows? I don't have a fucking clue. that would be the beauty of meeting them, though, is because you want to understand what else is out there and think maybe opens up your mind to things you never even fathom whatsoever thought about. So that's why it's always of interest to me. And I'm always interested when I see articles like that. Whether or not it's happening, I don't know. I mean, we've seen plenty of videos recently come out, even by the military, drop them showing unidentified flying objects that they're following. And there's even that discussion about, I don't know if you remember, like a year or two ago, there was this object that they spotted in space that just kind of sat out there, and then it suddenly was gone and disappeared. It didn't just like float away. And so this is helping to justify this person's comments around, no, they've been here. There's been scientific proof in other ways. But again, no one's physically seen them. And if they are somehow communicating with government people, who knows why? I kid around about the Star Trek Prime Directive because, I mean, in a sense, Gene Roddenberry was right on. When you come to a new civilization you never met, the first thing you do is you monitor, you watch, and then you make first contact at a very specific level. And then now that, again, I can say that because I'm applying what I've seen as my logic. That does not by any means that's exactly the case. Right. But it would, in my understanding, that would make sense. But that being said, what about the monoliths that we saw all this time that kept popping up in different locations? One first started in, was it Utah first?
So, yeah.
And then one ended up in like Southern California and then another country. And they were all similar. It's just, I think, to me, it was like a big artist sort of a prank. Well, not even a prank, I guess. More of an artist setup that with other artists, because there's no way they flew a monolith from one location. Well, they could have, but yeah. How do you think that plays into this? I mean, that just adds more fuel to the fire for those who are thinking about it. It's like, oh, the monoliths, these just came out of nowhere. But I mean, they were made out of, what the hell were they made of? They had rivets and
I don't remember what they were made of.
Some steel. But the people who broke it in Utah, like, yeah, this is like man-made shit. Yeah, of course it is. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. I mean, it did in a sense, like it wasn't there before. Someone drove it out there and put it there. But
people want to believe it.
And, you know, to me, it could just be a sign that people are trying to tell the people in another way, like, hey, you know, something big is coming, or like, you know, these, you know, getting them alert about, you know, what's going on, especially with COVID-19, the pandemic, you know, people kind of freaking out, like world end kind of stuff. So it's kind of like getting them more alert to like these kind of things. Now, is anything really going to happen? Doesn't say that, right? But I think it's more just an alert. Hey, let's just be mindful about this. Let's just think about this, right? I mean, the whole Galactic Federation thing, I've actually heard about that long time ago. That's why, and supposedly there was a hidden book. Yeah, there was supposedly
breaking news.
Yeah, and supposedly there was a document.
Sorry, I'm fucking rude.
No, it's all right. But I'm just saying, and supposedly there was a hidden document that actually detailed what these species were that were in talks with the government. Like there was, I think, 15 different species that are in talks with the government.
Well, it all comes back to Roswell, right?
Yeah.
Roswell's the first one that is of at least any speculation that's been talked about was Roswell in the 1950s. Yeah. Aside from that, yeah.
People would go back to our conversation about a year ago, which was when we started doing this about conspiracy theories. Is people don't like the fact that they're not in control. Like this whole thing with the pandemic with COVID-19. It's look. I protect myself, my family, and all that. I'm not a denier at all, but it's not even that serious of a pandemic in terms of how. I mean, it's highly infectious, but I mean the survival rate is pretty high. I mean, unfortunately, you know who it hits are elderly. And again, I'm not downplaying it at all, but I'm just saying, if you look at the mortality rate of something like SARS or some of the other ones before it, if we had the infectious rate with COVID-19 with the mortality rate of some of the other ones. You know, this has been a mild pandemic, to be honest. But it could have been a lot worse. But people don't like the idea of not being in control of things. They want an explanation. Yeah. They don't like the idea that a random event can affect the world in the way it has. That a single shooter could destroy a presidency or all these things. I think people don't like that. They have that uneasiness that, you know, that life is random. You know, that they don't like the idea that they don't have control of it. So like the thing with the aliens. So look, I don't deny any of that stuff can happen. I don't deny that there are aliens out there. I don't deny they can be visitors, all of that. What I'm saying is that the likelihood of, and going back to JD's point, because I think he really clarified what I was thinking, or maybe not clarified, but gave me a better direction to think of is that we don't have any clue. The amount of variations we can have with aliens, all these other things are almost infinite that can happen. We don't have control. We can't explain it. And it's like from the pandemic to nobody could. I mean, look, JD and I grew up as Republicans. I mean, in high school we were Republicans. When we did like the Model UN type thing in civics, or the.
But let's keep in mind, not heavy right-wing Republicans either.
No. And I think that as we learned more about what Republicans really are, I moved away. Like when I realized that they really weren't for small government, limited intervention, for a lot of these practices. And then you started seeing how much religion they put in it. Yes, I totally agree with you. Is that when I started seeing what they actually practiced, I moved away 15, 20 years ago from being a Republican. Now I'm mostly libertarian, but I just look at the whole progression with Trump. I mean, it's not that surprising, but I didn't expect it to go in this direction. So all of these things that happen, it wasn't for a reason. I think that things kind of progress in an organic way, and randomness happens, and that I think people in general just don't like that lack of control, or that idea that when you have to be forced inside your house, because of COVID or for whatever thing that's going on, it causes people to panic, because it means that they're not in control. Something else is in control of their life, and they don't like it.
It's the adaptation, right? It's like the Johnny Lawrence syndrome, right? Guy can't let go of the 80s, right? Or the Uncle Rico who can't let go of the 80s, right? And when things are changing, they're so colossal confused, right? And that's why it
goes back to it.
Yeah. And just going and piggyback off that, it's just, and that's why for me, it's like, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to sit down, stress over it and worry about that, right? Just like, all right, look, well, just what do we need to do? Just continue on, right? So if aliens are having communication with our government, all right, not surprised.
Well, I mean, from a humanity standpoint, again, one of the best things, one of the biggest traits humanity has is imagination, right? Yeah. And we can take that, and this is a good example of imagination, the creativity, be able to imagine something either positive or negative, and that happens so often, right? There can be great things come out of the positive imaginations you've seen, from creation, of writing to cars to flights, things along those lines, art, exactly, all that, to the bad imagination where you feel like you're being attacked or others, to the Trump protests that just recently happened, to Nazi Germany, shit like that, right? I mean, our imagination can take us one direction or the other. And so that's where, that's what the aliens is like. Our imagination will tell us one way or the other how we're going to take about this. Some people think aliens is, holy shit, we're about to be possessed. Seriously, we're going to be possessed. We're going to get somehow a rod up our ass, whatever it is, the shit that we make fun of, but stuff that they talk about. I mean, you've heard stories in the past. Someone says, I was taken to the alien spaceship and they probed me and all this stuff. I mean, and you can't say, and people call them crazy, right? They'll say they're crazy. Whether or not that's true or not, no one can validate it. They disappeared for a period of time for some of these stories, and people didn't see them, and then they came back. But imagination is key, and I think that's the problem, right? It's both a blessing and a curse. Our imagination, depending how we take it, can send us down a bad path where we, like I said, the Trump is probably a great example of that. Mm-hmm. He's made them believe that votes weren't counted correctly, that he was cheated. He wasn't cheated. He just fucking lost. Okay, he lost, but he was able to incite his people to imagine that, no, he's right. And their imagination took it further, like, fuck that. Now we need to go do something about it. And they stormed the Capitol and got into shit that they never should have done. And it's a challenge, because that group you saw, granted, they were a crazy group of, diehards, extremists, terrorists, really, is what they were. It's as simple as that, because the minute you storm a Capitol and try and take control, you're basically terrorists. So they should be treated as such. But I mean, the reality is this is unfortunate, but it's just that imagination can go wild quick. And that's where depression kicks in. Yeah. Right? Your depression is based on your interpretation of events. And a lot of people who are depressed tend to see more of what the future holds, and it's not a positive light. And so that's where depression kicks in.
Definitely comes back to what you were saying prior, JD. It comes down to their perception of what it is and how they interpret it, right?
And it's a human mind, man. It's the human mind. That's the thing that gets everybody. So,
It's what Iron Man went through. It's what Tony Stark went through in most of the Avengers movies. Like his knowledge of what was going to come was what set him down, a path of having panic attacks, anxiety, and depression.
yeah,
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great example. From that standpoint, think about it. One of the greatest comedians of all time, Robin Williams, succumbed to depression, right? In the end, that's what got him, was his depression. He was always fighting it. And on the outside, he looked great, funny, seemed like he was enjoying life. But in reality, it doesn't matter what you have on the outside, it's inside. And so that's why when I talk about, we talk about aliens, we talk about protesters, we talk about anything, it all comes back to the human mind and how those react. And that's, it's a blessing and a curse. So yeah, for aliens, I like bringing it up because it's always interesting. Because it escapes where we are today. We're not dealing with the shit on planet. Now we're thinking about elsewhere, like what's further out there, because that's part of our problem. We're so stuck and pigeonholed to where we are today that everybody's fighting for shit here. In a lot of ways, positive reasons for why they're doing it. But there's also just the stupid shit that's happening as well, like the Trump thing. And we need to start looking, kid around, but really we need to start looking to the stars, man. We need to start trying to expand our mind past this limited rock and start thinking of how we can be better as a whole so we can start expanding out there. And that's just not going to happen anytime soon.
It's not going to be.
That's my dream, is that people get past this shit and, we can get there. But hey,
because that would take a collectivism that's just not going to happen.
Not with 7 billion people.
We go back to that the mindset, but it's just people say racism is taught and so on, but there's also experiences. People, they want to oversimplify something as like humans are, talking about, aliens and being able to visit us and how they would look at us. But, reality is like the idea of cloning a human or artificial intelligence. Humans are way more complex than most people can imagine. Even this idea of cloning somebody, the environmental factors, you have twins, and if anybody's been around twins, it's like you see that as they get older, they start being different people. They're genetically they're identical, but some things, one will get a little bit taller, one will look a little bit different, one will have an extrovert, one will be an introvert. Yeah, they'll have those things, and they're essentially clones of one another. But the environmental things that constantly change them, that hit them with, think about it. Your diet affects how you look and view at things, and then that can affect how well you do in school. That can affect this, your parents, your siblings, the neighborhood that you live in. The amount of factors that go into creating who, especially old people like me and JD, and Mike's getting there too. But think about the amount of experiences that you've had over 50 years, and not just experiences with other people, but how your diet has done things, all of these things that have affected you in your life and created who you are. But the complexity that we have, and people have a tendency to really oversimplify things. And then they wonder why, like to JD's point, is that look at social media. Social media, people only present what they want you to see of them. And then that's creating a whole new issue for especially kids, whether they're older kids like our kids, JD, or younger ones like yours, Mike, is that how they perceive the world and how they perceive themselves in it is totally distorted by, again, social media and everything. How they look at themselves.
Definitely, it's the perception, right, of how they're viewing it, and every individual. Yeah, it comes back to that, right, and how we perceive ourselves and how we let other perceive us as well, right. And then you're right. So the people who are watching that now, that's the taste that they feel like, okay, there could be some relatability to that, but it doesn't come down to how they're being taught to themselves or what they see. So they're teaching themselves that, right? So going back to your question about racism is taught, you're absolutely right. It is, because you can get a born child go into this world. They don't know what racism is until someone shows them and someone teaches them what it is and explains it to them. And then they see it, then they have something to tie it into, like, oh, okay, well, that means this is racism. Oh, okay, that means this is that, right? It's whatever it is that we're taught. It's our perception, just like what JD was saying earlier, right? His interpretation and vision of what alien civilization would be like based off Star Trek, he's using that as a knowledge base. He's using that as a resource, right? Because that's what it was kind of placed in his head. So it's the same thing, right? Everything that we taught you. Yeah. So again,
So,
how? Yeah. I mean, so kind of like going back to
but
JD's point.
the other thing about that I'll say is that people want to discount with racism is that people also don't like realizing that they're average. There's the
Yeah.
whole thing about you're special and everything, or everybody's beautiful. No, beautiful means that you're at that objectively that you're more attractive than the average. And when you're looking at the average people, like intelligence, 80% of people fall within a pretty narrow intelligence span. So when people say that, oh, he's intelligent, or they think that you're not dumb, you're just average. I mean, a majority of people fall within that. And same thing like with looks. No, not everybody is beautiful because it's objective, and it means that you're at a higher level, and people don't like that, and then they want to blame things. And so you have white people wanting to blame Mexicans, or blacks wanting to blame whites, and everybody wanting to blame each other. And I think the other thing that happens with racism is that maybe sometimes it's not just racism that happens, but it's a bias that you have against somebody because of your own shortcomings, and then it creates like a deflection. And so even though I think mostly racism is taught, but there are people who gain it because of things that happen in their life.
Yeah,
What
events, things like that. I agree with you, right? So events in your life might dictate how you envision people, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll start to develop it. And those events can also be helped by, and I'm going to say this because it's true, the media, right? Because depending on the event you're seeing all the time, what you're portrayed will start to develop sort of your belief system. Here's,
Right.
this must be happening because I'm seeing it here. So this is true. Or, I'm no longer going to trust this type of person because I've seen multiple videos. It's like the whole Karen thing and shit like that goes on, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's true though. I mean, right? Yeah. It's so quick. Society right now is so quick to jump on the bandwagon of shit because they specifically want to feel good about themselves, right? They want to feel like they're on the right side of it, but there's always the other side too. And that's the thing. There's always multiple stories. Now, racism aside, that itself has just always been an unfortunate reality. And this goes back to my concept about why aliens wouldn't show themselves. Look how we react to our own species when they're different colors, right? I mean, honestly, it's like, it's sad. It's the sad truth. It's like, we can't even get along internally, and we're all humans. How the fuck are we going to deal with someone who looks totally different than us? So, and again, but yeah, I mean, racism to me is an unfortunate evil that's existed for forever, right? It's been forever. It started in the beginning of time. It's happened where slavery was, either the Greeks would take others as slaves, countries they'd conquer, they'd become slaves. The Romans did that. Everybody would create slaves.
Since civilization started. And I mean,
ever since civilization started, exactly. And it's continued. And unfortunately, to your point, perceptions get created, and unrealistic, unfair perceptions get created. And the Black community is a good example of where they're pigeonholed into a certain, there's a certain view a lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
And by people, I got to exactly right or wrong. And
I don't want to say right or wrong. I got to say both sides of the current paradigm.
Correct. I mean, people brought up a good example, right? And they're saying there's two Americas. If we go back to the Trump thing real quick, they say there's two Americas because you saw all the protests jumping in. No one was getting shot, although 4 people did die. One was definitely shot trying to break in, who was a former military vet. She was shot and killed trying to break in.
Yeah.
But visually, you looked at and you saw all these crazy fucking people. And yes, 95% of them were white. They weren't all white, though, by the way. I just want people to be clear. They weren't all white. Damn near all of them were, but they weren't all, right? So, but the point is they saw that and they're like, when Black Lives Matter did their thing, police were up there, armed guards and everything along those lines, not attacking the Capitol, but, just protesting in general. And it depends. It depends how, again, the story depends on what you're looking at that point in time. What are you comparing to? Because not all of them were the same. Some were violent. A lot of them were not. And so how did the police react? And again,
did they really act any differently?
Which ones?
No, I mean, because
so like, that's what I'm saying. It depends. If you're talking about
that, if a Black person did it, what usually happens is these violent altercations between police and people of color usually is 1v1, or like 1 or 2 cops with 1 or 2 people of color, whereas an individual thing. But if you look at the Black Lives Matter protests and everything, the police really didn't do anything in those times. So I'm kind of wondering, but again, it's that narrative that people want to do. It's like, yes, I don't deny that there's not police violence against people of color. It does happen. But what I'm saying is that when it came to protests, it's like people were saying that. I'm like, fuck, they're going to make it sound like I'm defending these people who did the Capitol, who stormed the Capitol, which I don't. But what I'm also saying is that what protest did the police come down harshly on as a whole, to the whole protest, not to maybe one isolated event, one 1v1 event that might have happened. Like, there were times where like somebody did something and then one cop retaliated or whatever. But when, was there a massacre that happened, like, Kent College in Ohio in the 60s, or some of these other riots that happened in the early civil rights movements? I mean, you didn't kind of see what that happened, but like you're saying, that the perspective that they want to create, the vision that they want to create on this one side is one way, and then the other side is trying to create this other vision, and it's just pushing people more and more into their current beliefs.
Well, so I agree with you. I think where I go more on this was a bit more forgiving because of color was they're literally attacking a federal building.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but they also did that in a lot of black. I think they did that in like Washington and Oregon and all these other ones.
True, they tore down statues and they let them do it. I agree. There's that, but I'm talking about. This is the U.S. government we're talking about. This is different in my mind.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree.
They should have taken a harder stance.
Yeah.
So, and the question is, would it have been the same if it was the other way? I don't know. To be honest with you, I've never seen black groups go and charge like that. So from that alone, I've never seen in the U.S. government specifically, because they have many reasons to go up, and they could have charged Trump, attacked and all that shit, but instead they stayed on the streets.
Yeah.
There's always the few in protesting. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what color you are. When you protest, you're always going to have bad elements that are in there, hidden in there, that cause shit and problems. And that suddenly changes the dynamics of what the conversation was about, because now it's like they're just protesting. They're just hooligans breaking shit. And that's not it.
Kind of like BLM. And then when people were doing the rioting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so that happens. And the people who stormed the Capitol, they're all being arrested. For as long as they're also idiots too. This just adds the whole point. They're taking selfies and shit. They're posting the stuff on Instagram. It's very easy to find them. And so
the one guy, the one guy like wearing that Indian type thing, but still had the American.
So another guy, brought a good point. He goes, "Hey, it's Fred Flintstone, Grand Poobah." It's true. It's true. It was a good call. I hadn't even thought about it. I go, you're right. It's like Fred Flintstone, the Grand Poobah. Yeah,
it's no different. People who follow Democrats and Republicans with Trump and how people follow politics on both sides, it's no different than religion. I mean, people do it they do it with such a blind eye to anything else. Like they focus on only the parts that they want to focus on. And I look, it's both sides. I'm sorry, but
I completely agree. There's
follow both sides. Like Kamala Harris, people have a blind eye to the stuff that she's done before, where I knew a lot of black people that were totally against her when she was DA of San Francisco and then of California, the things she did, of how aggressively she went after, pot smokers and people that were easy targets to her. And she laughed about things. And it's well known, living in the Bay Area, what type of DA she was. But now all of a sudden she's a savior.
Well, it comes back to the point that we've talked about before. People voted.
Trump's an idiot too.
I mean, when people selected who to vote for this time, it wasn't about who's the best candidate; it's who's the one I don't want.
Exactly.
That's all it was.
I want to make sure that they don't get back in there. So this is what
a year ago, nobody wanted Biden. A year ago, and on the Democratic side, nobody wanted Biden. Nobody wanted him. But now, all of a sudden, when he was the one who was front runner, everybody's like, Biden's going to save the world, and it's like, you weren't saying that a year ago. I mean, some were. I'm not going to say everybody, but everybody else was on all the other bandwagons, that they had. But nobody was really caring about Biden until all of a sudden when he became the de facto, it was like, fuck it, we're all behind him now. And I get be clear. It's better than Trump, but
I agree. And to your point, let's be clear. Biden's not coming to save the world. Okay, this misconception people believe like we're going to be we're finally going to be able to come together. We haven't come together as a nation since probably the founding of the nation. We had
Exactly.
a civil war. There's constant been
World
lines.
War One, World War Two,
Okay,
because we had to come together.
but even then, racism happened, so we weren't even combined together. Okay, my
We were
point
still
is,
fighting a war within us,
yeah,
right?
we still had our. It was pushed aside. To your point, it was slightly pushed
Yeah,
aside,
yeah, I think
It was
that's what
postponed.
or at least it was hidden to some degree.
it was kind
But
of
it
forgotten,
wasn't.
except for the Japanese.
Right.
Not, yeah, because
But
the
my point
Japanese got fought.
we're never coming together, and now we're a country strong of 330 million. We couldn't even come together when we used to be only 100 million or 50 million. I mean, come on. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be trying. Don't get me wrong. I just want to be realistic here. We're not in a place right now. We're not in a place where that's going to happen with Biden as president. And it's nothing against him. It's just you've seen there's 70 million plus people who literally voted for Trump, knowing going into that the type of person he was. Okay, now they didn't all look at him the same way, so you can't all say that, oh, it's because they're all racist. That's not the case.
I agree. Yeah,
That's an easy answer, but that means you're not even trying to understand. That just shows your inability to understand. The reality is
problems. That keeps that division because.
Well, I agree. That's a continuation of the issue then, if you're thinking that way.
You're seeing, and I've seen it on Facebook, especially living in the Bay Area, very left-leaning people, is the hatred and the thing that they're spewing out about what they want to do to the people who support Trump is no different than what you hear on the Trump side. It's the same rhetoric.
Yeah, I agree.
People think that that's going to work. It's just it's the idea. It's like there's that one guy, and I'm forgetting his name, but he's from the South, that he collects hoods from members of the KKK that he's befriended. You guys ever hear that story?
The African American guy.
Yeah. And I mean,
I've seen that. I've seen one video of him.
Yeah, he just became friends with them, and what he did was he didn't attack them. He befriended them. Invited them over for food. They got to know him, and eventually, guess what happened? They realized that he's a man just like they are, and they gave up, their background. That's what changes people. That's what creates real change. This idea that we're going to start a civil war. I'm sorry, but it's funny because you see people who are vets, and Sabrina will probably say the same thing. Is the fact of like, and I've seen this on like TikTok and other things where vets are like saying anybody who's saying that and is not a vet needs to shut the fuck up. The idea that a civil war happening in this country, even at a low level, is a horrific idea. And I mean, people will say that, and it's like they actually think that you're going to force somebody to change your position when it does the opposite. We start fighting. JD and I start talking about Browns Ravens. We've been doing it for 25 years now, or no, not 20. Yeah, 20 years. But you know what I mean. But it's like we're never going to come to an agreement for various reasons. But the big one is because we're just attacking each other.
Well, I'm just a dick. I'm intentionally inciting. I don't really care. In reality, I really don't care. But I just love to see him get worked up about it. That's what. But I agree. And I agree with you. I mean, the reality is that you can't force change. If they really thought a civil war would work, then after the initial first civil war, why was the South still so racist and took so long to finally move on? They lost. They lost, right? They didn't win, but that didn't change their perception. They still did the same shit. So they just now were no longer in arms.
It's unfortunate because it's a common thing here, especially here in America, where most people are quick to change others, but they're not quick to change themselves. So that's the problem, right? Change the position you're in, not the position that others are in. That's never going to help you. You're never going to succeed in that. You're still stuck in the same position that you haven't advanced from, but you're trying to change everyone else around you. How does that help you?
Right?
And that's the same problem they're constantly going to be in, right? Because they think that if I change that, everything else around me changed. No, it won't. You haven't done anything to move or change yourself. You're still in that perpetual state of, disbelief or anger, and it's all driven by emotion and through their perception, right? And so,
do you guys also remember, like when we were growing up, the ideas of bullies was to ignore them? Remember that growing up, it was always ignore them, don't give them power. If you retaliate, you feed them. I mean, you give them validation of what they're doing. But nowadays, clapping back and all of that other terms that they want to use for it, it's like on social media, it seems like half the posts on social media are retaliation ones, where people will grab a comment that somebody else did and just, go after it. It's like, when did this become something that become like valid to do, is to go after
the best practice to do it. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, growing up, like with the bullet, we just walk away from it and be like, "Fuck you," and I was sitting, just go on.
Validate him.
Yeah, that's it. Like you ain't shit. Now it's really about that, right? And no, and going back to Cobra Kai kind of thing in a weird way, that's kind of what it is, right?
Full circle. Here we go.
Fully coming back, Johnny Lawrence and Danny Rizzo, they're bringing it all back, right?
Yeah.
But I just think it's weird. You're absolutely right. But it's an emotional driven content to them, right? They're all driven by that, right? And
I mean,
it's being taught to them. It's what's being taught to them and what's being shown to them and how they should retaliate, how they should act, and how they should feel.
Yeah, and look, no matter what we say here, people are so stuck in their ways.
Yeah,
they're not going to suddenly think about it and go, you know what, I need to take. If you're far leaning left or far leaning right, you only see it your way. Now, over time, you may develop a sense. For some, they do. Some never do. Some just never do. But there's plenty who do, right? There's plenty who start to come to the realization that it's not just black and white. And I'm not talking about races. I'm literally talking about how you view things. It's not one way or this. It's not this way or that way. You have to look at it from. There's always something more to it, and people just don't want to take the effort in. But one thing you both mentioned, which is really the biggest factor too, and I talked about this, like imagination's a big thing, emotion's the biggest, right?
Exactly.
We're an emotional species. We attach ourselves to shit all the time. Sports, politics, religion, those three alone. I mean, people keep talking about when we come together, I'm like, no, we don't. Fucking Brown fans and Raven fans hate each other. Brown fans and Steelers fans hate each other. Or, not all of them, right? They're not all, violent about it, but there are.
Philadelphia, when the Cowboys come to visit in Philadelphia, Philadelphia Eagles actually have a court on underneath their stadium because of all the issues that they have when people visit them.
Right. Yeah. They actually prosecute right there. Yeah. And but I mean, you got that. You got politics. Clearly, we're seeing the signs of emotional politics going on.
What about religion?
And then religion's the other big one, right? Religion is the big one. And the problem is when religion and politics come together, that's your double banger right there, right? That's where it becomes even more difficult. So, so there's a lot to overcome. And the reality is, with 7 billion people, and I keep saying this, and it sounds unfair, but the reality is the larger we get, the harder it is to change.
That's why we just need aliens to come and just take over.
So we need the Galactic Federation.
We need
to come in.
But you need somebody to actually because humans aren't.
You're right. We need a single focus point to realize that we as a civilization are nothing compared to others. And maybe we'll change, except for the greedy fucks who'll try to get up there and become like the big ones, like the Bezos and all the other fucking corporate leaders who just want to make money.
I'm fine with them. At least you know what their intentions are. Seriously, at least with money, they're motivated by, right?
I'll leave you with this tidbit, Len, because this will set you off. But let's have fun with this one real quick before we go. We want to solve our Earth's problems, and it won't solve all of them, but at least get us to a point. One of the biggest ones is discrepancy, obviously, between wealth. Remove the concept of wealth. Remove all money. Everybody gets equal value, equal opportunity.
Hey, you know what?
Share across the world. Not even just U.S. I'm talking about across the world.
Start with you.
All resources.
You first. Lead by example, right? You can't force everybody else to do it. So lead by example. You and Mike go ahead and do it, and I'll see how it goes, and I'll follow if it seems like it's the right thing to do.
Well, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? Give up our money and be homeless?
Homeless, exactly.
Okay. In today's society, you cannot do it as 1 to 2 people. It has to be a global event.
So, in other words, you become General Zod or some other type of leader that can do it and force it to happen. That's the only way it's going to happen.
That's where you need alien civilization. You're right, Len.
Exactly. I'm saying, I mean, to think that
I agree. We literally need a sudden change. We either need a major event that causes a complete societal change, or something else. But in the current society, it's never going to work.
It's never going to work.
Out of all the things that happened in Wonder Woman 1984, spoiler alert, was that whole idea at the end of everybody giving up their wish. Everybody taking back their wish.
Everybody did not give up their wish. We know that.
The biggest fantasy of the whole movie. Honestly, that was the biggest fantasy of the whole movie, was everybody collectively giving up their wish. It would never happen.
You're saying nobody would do that. They're all bad people.
I didn't say nobody would. I said everybody wouldn't. There's no way that you will get 100% buy-in, not even 50% buy-in on that from people. Sure. People will be like, okay, I'll let everybody else do it, and I just won't.
People will be selfish because they have to be, considering how society is today. They're only thinking of themselves. If they want to survive, they don't have the money, they don't have this, and they can get it free through some other method. Why the fuck would they give it back?
But it's perception, right? You're saying perception. It's not so much the reality.
Emotion and what they're feeling at that time. That's what it's
Right.
based on, right? And that's what she was capturing at the end. So capturing their emotion, their perception of what it was, and it was kind of,
Right. Yeah, but people wouldn't.
Some people will, and some people won't. It is what it is.
There are a lot of people that would. There are a lot of people that are good, pure people. I'm not one of them, but there are a lot of good, pure people out there that would. But I mean, I would honestly say I'd have that hesitation. Just being completely honest, you hear something that you're like, well, let's see what everybody else does first. Wouldn't that be
I agree.
like
That's the catch. No one will do it because they want to see how it works for others. The problem is if they don't all do it, it'll never work because you won't have enough buy-in, basically, right? Whatever you want to call it. But that's what I'm saying. As much as I know that's the way we need to go, reality is to your point. I mean, you brought up an exact point. The only way it'll happen is there has to be a global event that forces society to change. Like there has to be such a massive global event. The pandemic is not a global, massive negative event. Sure, it sucks, but keep in mind, only 89 million people out of 7 billion have actually been identified as positive with COVID. In a year's time, 89 million out of 7 billion.
And it goes back to the point about this pandemic is not nearly at that level that would have to be like a global catastrophe.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Back to Len's point, I'm going to still wear a mask. I'm going to still do my part because I just want to help end it so we can get going. But I also don't feel like it's like the end of the world. It's not the Black Plague. It's not something that killed over half the population in the world. We're not even close to coming to near that. Even at the rate we're going right now, we would still never come near that in the next 10 to 20 years.
No way.
Never.
Yeah, if it had a higher mortality rate, it'd be but yeah.
Correct. Yeah. If the rate of people getting it and dying from it was much higher, then yeah, it would be a totally different story. So anyway, but hey, we've had a lot to discuss. Let me end the show on this. Len, who's going to win this weekend? Honestly, who do you think is going to win? Browns or Steelers?
Steelers. Okay. I think by how we've been affected with COVID, not having practices, how our defense is, just not having the right players in the secondary. And then you have the Steelers who've been there how many fucking times, the stability that they have, the preparation they have. It's just, is there a possibility? Kind of close to aliens visiting us, or maybe a little bit higher. But I think we could win. Yeah, I think there's a possibility. I mean, any given Sunday type thing. But I think the reality is I can see the Steelers winning by 10, 14 points.
All right, so let me throw this at you, Mike, because I know you're an avid football follower. Who wins the Super Bowl this year? And do you need me to tell you all the teams that are in the playoffs?
Yeah. Who's in the playoffs?
Too many teams. All right, I'll give you the top 4 for each one. Okay, so you got the Chiefs are number 1, and you got the Buffalo Bills, who've been surprising this year, are up there as well. They're actually playing right now.
Holy crap! Actually, I was just watching it. So Indianapolis could have been up 13-7, but they did a turnover on downs at like the 4-yard line.
Okay.
All right.
So anyway, you got, like I said, Buffalo, Kansas City. You have Pittsburgh, who's one of the top 4, and you have who is it? Tennessee. That's right. Tennessee. Those are your top 4. Okay, that are in there. You have still Baltimore Ravens. You have the Cleveland Browns.
AFC teams, right?
Those are I'm telling you the AFC first, so you can pick one of the AFC teams. I'm trying to keep it simple for you.
Got it.
So of the AFC, who do you think will make it?
If Kansas City is still staying strong from last year and they're consistent right now, I can see Kansas City doing. But if Buffalo is surprising people, Buffalo has always been known to do that, and Buffalo could pull it off.
What do you mean Buffalo's been known to do that, dude? They made the playoffs only the second time in like
he's thinking back years. He's thinking back to the 90s.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So okay. Just want to tell you, for like 25 years, they've changed slightly. So probably can't bet on that.
History has a way of repeating itself.
That is true. History can't repeat itself. All right. So who are you picking? Kansas City, basically.
I'm gonna go with Kansas City.
Safe bet.
Next.
I think there's a safe bet.
I think Kansas City's a safe bet. All right. So here's the NFC.
Buffalo. But Buffalo's actually not doing that well right now, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, they have to get over the hump, win that first playoff game, then they might actually take off from there. So It's the NFC. Number 1 seed is the Packers. Okay. And then you have the Saints, Seahawks, and Buccaneers. Or not Buccaneers. Who's the other one? Wait, yeah. Saints,
Bears.
Seahawks. Who is it?
Bears.
The Bears on top seed.
Bears. Yeah. Oh no, not top seed.
Washington. So the reason why I didn't think about Washington is because they actually won their division at 7-9 this year.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
those are the division winners. Okay. But yeah, Packers, Saints, and Seahawks, and then you have teams like the Rams, Buccaneers, are up there as well, and then you have Washington and the Bears are the other two.
I'm gonna go Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm expecting a Super Bowl I rematch.
Yeah.
Pack against Kansas City. That would actually be pretty cool to see.
I don't trust a lot of the NFC teams. I mean, the Packers are the ones I kind of trust. Like NFC, Breeze hasn't come back strong yet.
No, I agree.
Seahawks just is a weird team.
They fluctuate. The Seahawks.
Yeah,
They almost always lose. They almost always lose in the first round now.
Right.
It's sad.
This year they haven't been like, their offense was this, and then their defense was really bad, historically bad, and then it kind of changed where all of a sudden Wilson started throwing turnovers, interceptions, turnovers, and then their defense actually got solid. It's like I don't know what to take of the Seahawks. And again, with New Orleans, I just look at it like Breeze hasn't looked, after his injury, hasn't looked good yet. So I think it'll be, if he comes out and he actually starts being Drew Brees, then I think it'll be New Orleans and Green Bay in like the two top
championship.
Yeah.
Round. I agree with Len, but I was in the second round. Here's the matchup I'm excited for. It's tonight's matchup: Washington versus Tampa Bay. The reason why is because Tom Brady's on Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Alex Smith, who had that horrendous injury, has come back and led the Washington team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
5-1 is their starter. Overall, since he was signed by him, of course, he missed all last year because of that horrible leg injury.
Yeah.
They're like a winning team. And I liked how Bruce Arians said, we're not facing the Dwayne Haskins Washington team. This is Alex Smith. Because you know that they win with Alex Smith. They lose with everyone else. So I'm actually interested. I could see this. Now, 2 other times historically in the last 10 years, there have been teams that are 7-9, and both times they've won their playoff game.
Well, one was won a Super Bowl, too. What Seattle? Didn't they win?
They didn't get the Super Bowl. They just won that first round game and got knocked out the next year. No, they were 7-9. They didn't win it that year. Yeah, they didn't win it that year. Yeah, that wasn't the year. But I'm interested because I'd love to see Alex Smith succeed and beat them. So that to me is the most exciting game of the weekend. I mean, the Browns Steelers, I'm interested in that one for a multitude of reasons. Clearly, just to see Len suffer. But point is,
the playoffs. I don't really care. Seriously.
They're there. I agree. It's a good year, dude. They got to play out.
I almost expected to get blown out with everything having 4 practices in 3 weeks. I almost expect us to. If we don't get blown out, I'll actually be really even happier.
The one way I can see the Browns winning this is they have nothing to lose. Literally, they have nothing to lose. Right? It's one and done. And the Steelers' overconfidence.
Yeah, I agree.
It's going to come down to special teams, right?
It's going to come down to execution, aka winning.
Yeah,
whoever wins, executed.
Always, that's it.
Yeah, if
whoever wins, executed, dude.
Exactly.
Anyway, all right. It's been a great show. Thanks for everybody listening in and joining us. We hope you enjoyed it, and have a good rest of the weekend. Enjoy the playoffs, and then we'll catch up to you next week.
Happy New Year, everyone.